Good morning, everybody. My name is George Morrill. It is 10 o'clock. It's 10:01 a.m. And I'm going to call this special called meeting of B County Commissioners Court to order. Today is Thursday, February 10th, 2022. We are physically located at the B County Courthouse Commissioners Courtroom, number 110, 105 West Corpus Christi Street, Beeville, Texas 78102. That was the call to order. Moving on. The agenda: discuss and consider action on the following items. Agenda item number 2, approve possible selection of secondary medical examiner for B County. Let me just start by kind of setting the stage so everybody's expectations align. What I want to do is I'm going to give this was a agenda item request originating from Commissioner DeWitt, so I'm going to give him the floor first, and then we'll kind of go through an open discussion. Any member of the public, any employee of the county that's or court-appointed or a publicly elected official of the county that's present in the Commissioner's courtroom today will have an opportunity to engage in an informal manner. I would only ask that, and if I know Judge Showalter may have some prepared statements if y'all want to when your time does come up. If you want to come up to the lectern, you may. If you want to stay seated from where you're at, that's fine too. The idea here is that we discuss not only needs and wants and expectations, but also availability of options. And I think, unfortunately, that's one of the things that we're going to come to realize today is that the options are either economically or through no option, and no ability to obtain the services, our options are somewhat limited. So that being said, we're here because there's been an issue at the Corpus Christi or the Nueces County Medical Examiner's office. They've assured our auditor that those problems have been resolved, but it does raise the specter and the issue of what happens if we have a situation where we can't take bodies to the medical examiner in Nueces County. Where can we go in a pinch? And so I'm glad that we're here. I appreciate all the commissioners being here, and I appreciate our judges, our district attorney, our sheriff's office, emergency management, all being present today to participate in this discussion. So, Commissioner DeWitt, I presume you have prepared comments.
I have some, yes, sir.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. The way this came up, to be real honest, I was at a meeting with a group of law enforcement officers, and the subject came up about where do we take the bodies if we can't take them to Corpus. And the context of the conversation basically was, it's been on the news down in Corpus, the assistant medical examiner was not certified in Texas, did not get the certification in time, so was dismissed from the medical examiner's office. The medical examiner himself had been there many, many years and was going to retire, but they convinced him to stay on. Well, then, according to what we read, the work became so overwhelming and the pressure became, he said, you know what, I'm going to take care of all the bodies that we have, all the cases we currently have, and that's it. I'm not going to do any more. Well, what that presents for a county like B County, you have 4 justices of the peace that their main job, one of their main jobs is if there is a death, they have to preside over that death and decide, is this death one that has to have an autopsy? If they do, they contact the funeral home, it's sent for an autopsy. Well, if you can't send it to Corpus where you normally go, what do you do with the body? So that was the question, and then it came up about where is the next nearest place to have autopsies done. And I said, well, probably do them in Victoria. They said, no, Victoria doesn't do them. Do them in Lockhart. There's a place in Lockhart. There's San Antonio does them, but only for Bexar County. Then you have Austin. So the question came up, and I appreciate the county judge. He had been working on this with some surrounding counties before. Just talking about it, one thing or another, what might come up. I appreciate And the reason we're waiting a few days to have this meeting, staff has contacted several places that do autopsies for information. I know that information is all going to come forward. We have the Justice of Peace here to talk about their problem. And something else has come up since this first started. We had a meeting a few nights ago with about 40, 50 people at a political meeting. It was discussed at that meeting about this problem, and I brought up the idea about if we created our own medical examiner position in Beeville County at the hospital or doctor's office. The response that I received from the group overwhelmed me, and it overwhelmed a lot of people. It was so positive as to, there were 2 city councilmen present. They said the city might be willing to help fund it, help do it, help do the research. Had an individual come toward the end and say, hey, if you need somebody to do all the cost-benefit ratios, I'll be happy to do that for you. So that's just a thought, just a thought that we might keep in the back of our mind. We create our own medical examiner position in Beeville County. The surrounding counties would come to us. We would do the autopsies here, but that's for a later date. What we're here for today is talk about the possibilities of what we can do. From what I understand, they are now taking bodies again, but it could stop. So with that, Judge, I will give it back to you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner DeWitt. Would any other commissioner like to make any opening comments at this time?
No.
Okay. I'd like to turn over the floor. I don't know if we want, Judge Siniga or Judge Showalter, y'all want to kind of weigh in and give us
I've
your...
got some figures for you.
Okay.
I think we have a misconception of an inquest and an autopsy. An inquest does not equal an autopsy. I have some figures from Mike Shore.
And he come forward?
So somebody's a good math person.
Would you mind coming a little closer
Sure,
for the microphone? I'm
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
Judge. Or
No, I'm not very good at that. I had my clerk go through, and go individually by justice of the peace. JP1 in last calendar year did 24 inquests. Of those 24, she requested 9 autopsies. JP2, I had 23 inquests and requested 9 autopsies. Judge Zuniga, JP3, had 33 inquests and 5 autopsies. JP4 had 24 inquests and 9 autopsies.
24 or 34?
24. So I think that adds up to 104, 110, something like that. And the autopsies is about, the way I figured it, about 40% of deaths end up with an autopsy somewhere. Some of these numbers could be skewed a little bit because during COVID, the medical examiner in Corpus was not accepting. If somebody died of COVID, there was no autopsy allowed to be done. So if the hospital said, yeah, they have COVID, they may have died from something else, but we couldn't find out because the medical examiner wasn't taking the COVID patient. So
What's the difference, Judge, between an inquest and an autopsy? Does the inquest, does the body still go to Corpus and it's a...
no,
No.
inquest is we go out, we pronounce the individual is dead. We note the time, location, and the report that we fill out to the state. All right, autopsy, if you see I'll give you an example. The young man that was hit by a car here on St. Mary's the other day, there was no need for an autopsy. It was very obvious what had happened. We had an automobile accident in front of Skidmore High School. We didn't know. The injury to the man did not indicate that he died because of that automobile accident. So did he have drugs? Did he die of a heart attack? What caused that accident? I had a multiple car accident out on 59 highway, head-on collision, did autopsies. The one who caused the accident was twice the legal limit for alcohol. The other individual had heroin in the system. So we wouldn't have known that unless we did an autopsy. Do you have any questions? So an inquest does not equal an autopsy. It's up to Judge Zuniga, myself, and the other JPs to to decide. Now, we may consult with each other, we may talk with the doctor at the emergency room, or talk to Lieutenant Levine at the scene, you know, what do you think? Blah, 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 and then we make the judgment based on that.
Thank you so much, Judge. I would think, and I don't know, Ms. King too, you might be able to, if I'm ballparking things, autopsies are about $3,000 or so, 3,800.
They're running from $1,800 to $4,000.
My,
$4,300.
I'm sorry,
$4,300.
my 9 autopsies last year came out to $28,600.
Oh, thank you, Judge. Can you tell, do you have the numbers on the other 3?
As far as cost, though.
Yes, sir. No, okay. I think the number the last couple of years has been around $100,000 every year. And so 32 would be at about 3,000, would be about $90,000, so.
We did 30 autopsies in 2021, and we busted our budget. We've had to do line item transfers for the last 3 years for our autopsy line item. We were at 116,000 in 2021. And that, of course, is autopsies plus transportation. Yes, and all the ledgers were
thank you.
uploaded for the last 4 years.
That's this, the spreadsheet.
And excuse my notes, I didn't know they were gonna be.
That's okay.
I had already done a little my chicken scratch.
Ms. McWilliams, you had some conversations with the Lockhart, group, and the next day, Mrs. Cantu had conversations with the Lockhart group, and what they told you was the exact opposite of what they told her. But, so that we're clear, when you spoke to them, they said, yeah, we'll send you the packet of information. This is what we need your folks to fill out and do, and we can handle it. And then 24 hours later, April called, and they told April, no, oh, thank you, I drank all the options. Here's your back. They said no, but I'd like to, and if you don't mind, I'd like you to kind of tell the Commissioners Court a little bit about your conversation with them and your thoughts and concerns with respect to medical or autopsies and medical examiners in general with respect to the services that you need them for. Prosecution.
Yes.
How does a issue in a medical examiner's office impact your ability to do your job?
I also spoke with Dr. Dana the day before. At that time, and it was in regards to Live Oak County. They moved a little bit quicker, even though PB County moved very quick. News is coming out, while y'all are concerned, obviously, with budget issues, that's a concern for our office, but the major concern is not having the issues in Nueces County affect prosecution of murders here in Live Oak and McMullen. So immediately Live Oak got on it, and Dr. Dana provided us the packet, the information, and so there are no contracts for her facility. It's on an as-body basis, and they will not turn a body away. If they are experiencing an uptick in the number of counties utilizing their facility because of many things, one of which is what's going on in Nueces County, and that's why I was a little worried that if we didn't get there soon, they were going to get all full up, because Nueces County serves something like 18 of the surrounding counties. So she said, just anybody, they'll take it. There may be a delay in terms of getting the autopsy performed, but they'll get it done. And her delay, she was referring to, is 4 to 5 days. So it's not an insane delay, a very long or lengthy delay. The autopsy was $2,800 per set rate. They don't do partial autopsies, they only do full autopsies. And her testimony later, which again from the prosecution side is the important part as well, is simply $500 a day to the county for her coming in to testify at murder or intoxication manslaughter trials, which I obviously didn't give that information to Ms. Cantu ahead of time, but I'm sure if you check back, that is significantly less than what was charged with Nueces County. concern that I have, and I know, from much like yourselves watching television, Nueces County saying everything's great, no worries, keep on sending your bodies here, please. They are a business as well as everything else, and that is not accurate. These problems are going to exist, and the stain that is now there on Nueces County will carry over for the foreseeable future. This is going to be a difficult thing to come out from under, and I think it does not behoove the citizens of B County to continue sending our bodies there to Nueces County. Dr. Shaker is the one that signed off on this unlicensed individuals to do these autopsies. He has his own issues aside from this that existed before, and so this is simply compounding it. This is not a singular issue with just having an unlicensed medical examiner in the office. There are allegations of perjury having taken place by Dr. Shaker in Nueces County while on the stand in murder trials in Nueces County. And there are allegations currently from the Commissioner's Court in Nueces County that Dr. Shaker has misrepresented the status of his office to them. I'm not involved in that fight. I don't know if that's true or not. But I know there are absolutely, he's admitted to, I don't know if he calls it perjury, but incorrect testimony in district court. And that's a problem. And so,
Tomato.
right, exactly. It's like, I don't know that, I'm not going to stand before you and say, oh, he's admitted, yeah, I perjured myself. I don't believe that he is saying that. I believe each of us have our own way of viewing things that happen. However, I can tell you this, defense attorneys come into this courtroom here with the transcript printed out saying, I'm ready. Put him on the stand.
Yeah.
So that is my position is, I think that we should endeavor to get, frankly, anywhere that has a certified medical examiner, it's licensed to practice in the state of Texas, and doesn't have these issues. That's my main goal, is let's get somewhere away from there. Now with Lockhart, telling Ms. Cantu that they aren't taking anybody, I think again, that's probably on an as-body basis. They're probably somewhat overwhelmed right now, because that is what Dr. Dana told me when I discussed bringing Live Oak County's bodies to her, is that they're seeing this uptick of things coming in. They're not going to turn anybody away, and they could take on Live Oak County at that time. But I'm sure even after we spoke, more counties have been reaching out, and so she's made those commitments. I bring that up to say we could likely continue to contact and see if on certain cases that we know are definitely homicides that need this type of investigation to be performed, we could still reach out and check on that as-body basis if you would accept the body. The transport fees that were included in the packet here really don't show a significant increase for the transport to Lockhart versus what we're paying now. In my opinion, for the offset in the amount of the autopsy costs and for the benefit of not having those issues at trial, I think it's a negligible amount. Hidalgo, I have no positives or negatives to say about Hidalgo. I'm not familiar with their ME's office in any way, shape, or form, other than it's farther away and it will cost more to get there. That's all I have. I don't know if y'all have any questions for me. Yes,
I have one. Yes, ma'am. Back to my original statement about creating a medical examiner's position and everything in B County. What would be your thoughts on that?
I have no issue with that trying to be done. I think it's a big undertaking. I think that's one of the issues that Nueces County is facing right now is they have many issues. But one of them is, it's not, for whatever reason, while we all love and enjoy where we reside, not everyone does. Not very many people are very eager to come down to South Texas when they apparently have other options to go to other places. So Nueces County's had an ongoing issue with getting appropriate staff there in their facility. And that's kind of a concern for me is if they're not willing to go to Nueces County, who undoubtedly is going to pay them more, and it's Corpus Christi, I don't know if we're going to have a very easy time filling the slots in B County. That would be my own concern. But otherwise, again, I think, there are budgetary concerns. It's going to be a lot of costs up front that you might be able to get back on the tail end, but you're going to have to put the money in originally. But I don't come here in that as anybody in charge of the purse strings, for B County. I'm not saying it is a good investment or a bad investment. I'm only looking at it with blinders on solely for prosecution. So if we had a facility that was up and running and appropriate and certified, the actual lab can be certified, and it's following all those guidelines, as long as it's going to not create an issue for me in district court, I have no problem who conducts the autopsy as long as they're qualified medical personnel. All I'm looking for.
Thank you. Yes. Mrs. McWilliams, could you?
On an annual basis, with respect to, if Court is looking at this, and Nueces, out of necessity, convenience, cost, continues to be our primary resource for autopsies that are required. If Commissioners Court could carve out some type of mechanism whereby, in the event of a murder or a death under suspicious, probably criminal circumstances, where, and I believe you and JP's and the Sheriff's Office are in close contact with each other. So when, like, the most recent alleged, murder, I guess the stabbing victim in Blueberry Hill, y'all were aware of it, you could be made aware of it quickly. If at that time, if there was the ability for us to carve out some sort of mechanism whereby you could say, okay, for this one, we want to go to Lockhart. I want Dr. Dana to do it because we're going to go to trial, or we're going to be preparing for trial. Would that be something that the district attorney's office would be willing to work with us on internally to try to figure out how we could create those checks and balances so that it's not a situation where if we have better pricing, at the end of the day, I think a lot of our all autopsies are important, but in the context of a felony criminal trial, those autopsies carry a much different weight. For autopsies like that, if we could create some sort of bucket and have some sort of mechanism whereby you could say, oh, it needs to go to Lockhart or Hidalgo or wherever. Is that something that you think could work operationally speaking for your purposes as far as prosecutions go? Because the number of those instances, I think on an annual basis, are relatively low, right?
I agree. No, I think as long as the JPs were in agreement with doing that and wanted to reach out to us, I don't think it'd be a problem. I agree, normally we're made aware. It's not the JPs that typically contact me, it's the investigator that usually does, but they are all more than welcome to have our phone numbers and contact us. I think that, again, with the blinders on, and I understand, I'm looking at it only from the prosecution perspective. You guys have more concerns than that, I understand that. But I agree, like, if we could do that, if we could set up a plan where we know the troubled ones are definitely going to be taken out of Nueces County, I do think that would aid us down the line. And coming back to the cost, the county may not bear the costs up front in the autopsy if they're getting a better deal with Nueces County. But in the dragged out legal process that's going to occur because of the bad work done in Nueces County, we will lose more and more money because it's going to result in, we're going to have to bring in another expert to come in and testify and either conclude that they agree or disagree with what Nueces County, because we can't rely on individuals in this circumstance who either aren't certified or have, again, these credibility issues. Like, that's not going to be fixed. So we'd have to incur costs to bring in another expert to confirm or deny those findings. And then it's going to be the appellate process coming down over and over again where this thing just never ends, because that's what it can bring up on appeal, is that this was never a murder. It was never a murder because this was an incorrect offer. So if we can try to avoid that out of the gate and direct those cases to Lockhart or to some other facility that's not Nueces County, then there might be, again, that little bit of a fee increase in the upfront, but for a better, more reliable result, I think it saves us money in the end.
Basically, that would fall on the investigators then.
Well, and this is, I apologize, I would ask Judge Zuniga and Judge Showalter, I'm not 100%, certain of the actual procedure of, when whichever JP's on call shows up at the accident scene, or if it's the sheriff's office that shows up at the accident. I don't know how the lines of communication, I don't know what kind of a burden I just potentially created on y'all by making that proposal, and I don't mean to, but I'd welcome y'all's, both the sheriff and the judge's input.
I don't think that it's going to create a burden. I think it's going to give us another option. Okay. I think the more options we have, the better off.
If we're called to a scene in the city, there's gonna be a city investigator there. If it's in the county, Lieutenant Levine or one of his investigators are gonna be on scene. We're gonna talk about what we've got. He said, look, this would be something, maybe we need to go to Lockhart. I would have no problem doing that. Yeah, you?
if it's gonna be like outside something like that, it's gonna be you have to have one of the options. I would call her. If she wants it done in one point, or like, do that option. If you can't send it to Corpus, and that's the, get the great result, you do it for, then in one point. So this is up to the GM.
So the concept isn't, at least how we're thinking about it right now, it's not burdensome or overly burdensome on, because I know there's a lot going on, and I don't want to create an additional layer.
Or we may have to call the DA at 2 o'clock in the morning to see what.
I thought the first time.
Translate, she said, Mrs. McWilliams said, fine, no problem.
Right.
She's good for their phone.
Right.
My number.
Right.
May I ask another question?
Yes, sir.
I know all the counties you represent, about how many would there be total in a year, just off the top of your head?
Autopsies or murders?
Autopsies that would fall back into y'all's office?
Well, I guess that would only be the murders.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I don't know, like this, when
Yeah,
Judge
we're not
Showalter was
talking
up
about
there talking about the total
Yeah, we're not
numbers.
talking about a regular autopsy, we're talking
That's
about one that
okay.
affects y'all's office, that y'all would be prosecuting or whatever.
I mean, I'd say 5 or less
Okay,
on average.
okay,
Some are obviously worse than others, but it's never double digits every year.
okay.
Are there any other questions at this time?
No, this is excellent.
Mrs. McWilliams?
Thank you.
Do y'all have any questions of Mrs. McWilliams? No? Thank you so much.
All right,
I really
thank you.
appreciate your presence and your time this morning. I'd hope that we would have, potential contracts that we could look at and say, okay, but we're not really there. We don't really have that. I do know, Mrs. Cantu jumped on this real quick and got in touch with Hidalgo County. And I think I'm giving credit where credit is due. Actually got us on their agenda to discuss, entering into a contract. As of yesterday, I don't think we got no written communication back, but and you can jump in at any time, April. The long and short of it is they tabled the item, but they had a good discussion about it. So we don't really know if Hidalgo is an option for us or not. We're kind of waiting for them, and I believe we're back on the agenda in 2 weeks for them to continue to discuss it. So hopefully in the interim. Yes, sir.
Judge, when it comes to a doggo or whoever you talk to, are you getting any kind of feedback from other agencies that, hey, Lockhart's a pretty good place, or, man, I'd stay away from a doggo? Because who knew about Oasis County until this came up? I'm sure maybe there was some feedback, like the prosecutor said, she knew some things that I, as a JP, I had no idea that Mr. Shanker was having the problems he was having. So how do we know that a doggo doesn't have the same problem that Oasis County has unless we've done some follow-up information, some pre-approach, that makes, I did talk to a funeral guy, from one that picks up the bodies. He said he has taken people to Lockhart. He says it's the cleanest, most respectful place he's seen of the places that he goes. So that is a plus for Lockhart.
And I think it was you, Tiffany, that told me that DPS has positive things to say, similarly glowing things to say
Yes.
about Lockhart as well.
Yes, the Texas Rangers actually,
Oh, Rangers.
it was a Live Oak County case. They brought Lockhart to me several years ago, just because, much like what Judge Showalter is saying, just because they were so impressed with the facility. So it wasn't at the time because of anything going on in Oasis County. It's just so that you know, Lockhart's amazing. You guys really should use Lockhart. We worked cases up there, and it's just fabulous. So that was relayed to me, and that bug put in my ear several years ago. And Lieutenant Levine just mentioned, and I know this to be true also, is Karnes County utilizes Dr. Dana as well. I previously worked in Karnes County many moons ago, and I can say they never had any issues there either. When you brought that up, that did remind me of that in the past. So there are some surrounding communities that are currently using them, and other law enforcement agencies that have had good results. Like I said before, though, up until this week, when Judge brought up the consideration by Hidalgo, I'd never heard anything good or bad, so we could endeavor to make some phone calls to law enforcement around the area to find out, but I just simply have no information on that. I do know everything I've heard about Lockhart is positive. I've not heard anything bad from anyone or any level of government,
If we can get it.
if we can get in.
Right, yeah, and I mean, if it's on a limited basis, I'm pretty sure. Yes?
I was in training last week with the JP from Hidalgo County. He did 400 inquests in his precinct, and half of them were were telephonic, that he didn't go to the scene, he didn't go view the body, he didn't talk to an investigator. So,
Wow.
if one JP has 400 autopsies in Hidalgo County, that's
Yeah,
something
no,
that-
that's a troubling
Well, and
statistic.
it's further down there than it is Lockhart.
Oh, it's, 20 minutes,
Uh,
what's 40 minutes round trip?
I think Ms. Cantu has some information about Lockhart too, she wants to share with us.
I just talked to Dina at Lockhart, and because Dr. Dana had been called out. And so I told her we had this meeting today, and so she said, let me just call her on her cell phone and see what response I can get. And so she called back to the office, and she said that Dr. Dana said no, she could not, they were overwhelmed, and they could not take anything else. That's what the information was relayed to me. I did not talk to Dr. Dana myself, so anyway, that's the information I have. As far as Hidalgo, I taught, the ME in that county is run by the DA's office, and, Victor Garza is my contact there in the DA's office. He's the one that took the item to court on Tuesday evening. And he called me yesterday and told me that, the discussion was positive and promising, but they did table it. They had 50 current, bodies at their ME, and so that, I'm thinking that was the reason why they tabled. But he said it's gonna be back on in 2 weeks, and he said if they decide, then he'll send us an interlocal.
Well, if they're doing
So-
400 and you got 50, they're pretty decent.
Yes, and Judge Showalter don't relate to autopsy.
But that's just,
Current, that's a big number.
it is.
And I think it's important politically, and substantively to clarify that, B County appreciates the relationship that we have with the Nueces County Medical Examiner's Office, and we understand that snafus like this, issues like this, unfortunately, they happen. And we do remain confident that, the Nueces County Medical Examiner's Office, has addressed the issue, will emerge from this stronger, and with higher quality, than they had before. It just does, unfortunately, for counties like B County, highlight the precarious position that we find ourselves in when something like this happens, and we don't have any alternatives that we can look for. So I just wanted to make sure, and that is shared, that position and feeling, I'm sure, is shared amongst the entire commissioners.
Yes, absolutely.
But I don't know, I'd like to see if we have other ideas. It sounds like right now we are constrained in options by a lack of medical examiners' offices in Texas, let alone in our region. Our region is swelling now from the Rio Grande up to the Hill Country and beyond. So we're like a third of the state is now our region, which is difficult. And it looks like we're going to need to continue working, and we will. And I would ask Tiffany if you could get some, if you don't mind, when you're talking to law enforcement, get any input that you can. Sheriff, if you and your team, any information that you can get from other departments, your friends in other counties, see what their thoughts are on various ME's offices. And I'd ask the same thing on the JPs. I know y'all's relationships and connections with our JPs in our adjoining counties and across the state could reveal some important and interesting information. And I thank y'all all for all the work that you've done in preparation of this meeting today, as well as Ms. Cantu's office. And but we don't really have any contract to consider, we don't have any offer on the table, or, right?
There
Oh,
was
wait,
an offer
there is one.
from Dr. McLean. He was given to me by Bear County, Amy at Bear County. That's a contract doctor that they use. And he did respond to me last night, and he says he has offices in Tyler, Texas, and
Oh,
Beaumont.
That's right.
So, yeah, so we're talking 4.5 hours and 6 hours. So he said, I would be, open to discussing with your county, but I
You
am
know what?
far, so.
He could put an office in B County.
Ms. McWilliams,
Think
is there
about it.
any
And
other
he works out of
ME
Tennessee
and
too,
other
so,
than the two that we spoke about?
Not that I'm aware of that are taking bodies, that, much like Chicago, I mean, the problem is right now, they're all full up with their own body. COVID and other, they're just behind, lack of staff, and I've not found any other facilities that are taking any in. I do know, as of last week, I was told that Travis County would take some additional, but I don't know if that still stands, since even Lockhart is now seemingly getting full up.
So it's either Hidalgo, Nueces, or Lockhart.
Well, there's a Webb County, there's a DA, an ME's office there, but they're only doing in-county bodies. They're not
Ms.
doing
Cantu,
bodies.
and I was a little
There are other
facetious at first,
agencies
but I'm kind of serious now. He's got an office in Tyler and Beaumont. He could put one in Beeville.
And he works out of Tennessee.
But he works out of Tennessee, but if
he
he's
lives
a,
in San Antonio.
but if he's a
and-
company, he may be looking for another location, and with what's going on, it might, who knows? They may
Well, I
fund
have
the
his
whole thing.
contact,
Please.
and I'm happy to share, well, I have his,
If you'll give me that contact, or Judge,
God,
I'll,
I'd be happy to let you run.
yeah, I'll be happy to contact him. I'll take that,
Pass that over.
I'll do it.
Commissioner, if you would, copy that, get that to Randy's site with BAP.
Randy could probably help.
Is there a phone number on it? I don't see a phone number.
he didn't put one, but there's his, email address is how I contacted him.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause that's what, Bear County gave me, is just his
Okay, I'm
email
sure.
address.
Find him a building.
Find him a building.
I got a building available for him.
You'll have it, you'll have it.
He was very
somebody has
responsive, because I
buildings.
just emailed him, Commissioner DeWitt, I just emailed him yesterday, I think early afternoon, and he, responded to me
Okay.
after 5,
With the
so.
authorization of the court, I will contact him. Please do. It may take a couple of weeks for him to get it set up, but, you know, we'll do what we can.
No problem. What you got, Commissioner?
Expect the full report Monday, Commissioner Court.
You'll have it, sir. Get here early, because it's gonna be long.
Bring a lunch.
I think Commissioner Freeze is bringing lunch.
Is there anybody
I
else?
think we're off track here.
Emergency management, y'all, thoughts, concerns, anything that we've said that, you know, raises a red flag that I don't see?
No, my only concern is hearing a mass fatality incident. That's my only concern, is, you know, we have, God forbid, a mass casualty event somewhere. What are we gonna do with an influx of 10, 20 people that could possibly?
Need be, yeah. And I think, although, and I, maybe we're still, everything that we look at, everything, all of our conversations and discussions and the feedback that we get is still under the cloud of COVID. And I think it's a really good point to make, that the COVID impact to how these offices operate and function probably complicates it and makes it more difficult for them. So if we're approaching them saying, we want to move all of our stuff to your to your office, the answer may be a clear no. If we say, we may have 3 a year that we want good quality, and we want you to be the expert for us, the answer is probably going to be, yeah, we can probably sneak them in, but we just can't commit to providing you this much bandwidth year round.
And that was my discussion with
Okay.
everyone. This is a secondary, a backup. I gave them, our average annual, and then I divided that by quarter, and it was about 8, you know, because that's what Hidalgo had asked me for, is what might be going, you know, not our whole 30 that we have annually, but possibly 8, because that's just kind of the, you know, the number I came up with, and, Mr. Garza agreed with that. So that's what he presented
That's what
to
he's
the court.
considering.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you. Well, that's better than, so that's worse for us if they're not willing to consider that.
Right. So anyway, that's how we kind of discussed that.
Anything else that needs to come before the court with respect to this agenda item?
No, but what I'm thinking, Judge, is I'm gonna see if I can get him to give us a presentation
Okay,
on site.
yeah, absolutely, and,
We'll work on it.
yeah, that's great. Mr. Willow?
I just wonder if we contacted the, folks that transport the bodies, if they'd be willing to take the 6 or 8 hours out of their schedule.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah, if you pay them, they'll go.
So, yeah, we did, and we do have, estimated, costs for the various locations. And they vary, between the different, funeral homes. But yeah, definitely longer distance is gonna be a greater cost that they're willing to do it. Nobody has said, no, we won't. Yeah, but it's a really good point, and it's one that we do need to bake into whatever the cost is for the actual autopsy in the facility that we're taking the bodies to. So it sounds like we've got basically a lot more digging to do, and I'll put it on another agenda, maybe the next commissioner's court, we'll put an agenda item on, and if we have anything further to discuss, we can, and if not, we can just pass it for another future agenda item. But I really appreciate on short notice, everybody, coming in and participating in the preparation that you did to provide the information to us. Thank you. I think that's for everybody from April 15, the judges, the sheriff, and ECM. So, EMC. EOC. What's ECM?
That's our project manager.
Oh, I'm thinking that, but I'm not thinking that. But EOC? What department? EOC. Who's in charge of that?
That'd be Mr. Darcy.
What department does that fall under? That was mine. Oh, no, thank you all very much. If there's nothing further, is there any motions that need to be taken on this agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move on. We don't have an executive session. Agenda item number 3, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion passes without exception. We are adjourned. Thank you. I wanted to speed up the end, give y'all back a little bit of your time, but.
Yeah, thoughtful guy.